Bryn, and today I'll be presenting my research project on Birmingham, Alabama during the lifetime of Frederick Douglass from 1818 to 1895. I'll just be talking about how the city developed, what happened during Reconstruction, and how these events connect to a narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. So first, I'd like to explain why I chose Birmingham. I chose Birmingham because it's the city that I call home. My mom and I moved here when I was about 5 years old, and it gave us a fresh start and new opportunities. And before this project, I mostly knew Birmingham because of its role in the civil rights movement, but wanted to just learn more about the history that came before it. So this project really helped me deepen my understanding of that and gave me a greater appreciation for the history. So before Birmingham officially existed, this area looked a lot different. It was called Ellington, which was the original county seat of Jefferson County. It was mostly farms and plantations that relied on enslaved labor, including land owned by Stephen Hall. One place from that time that still stands today is the Arlington House that you can see on the right hand side. During the Civil War, Union soldiers used Arlington House as their headquarters while moving through Alabama. Even though Alabama didn't exist yet, many of the same systems of slavery that Frederick Douglass described in his autobiography already existed here. So after the Civil War ended, it changed again, and Birmingham was born. It was founded in 1871. About 6 years after the war ended, the Ellington Land Company built the city where two major railroads crossed because the area had coal, iron ore, and limestone. These resources brought businesses, and thousands of people came looking for work, including many of those formerly enslaved African Americans hoping for new beginnings. So as Birmingham continued to grow, the South was entering a time period known as Reconstruction. After the Civil War, the country tried to basically rebuild the South and give formerly enslaved people more rights. So we had the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment in slavery made black people citizens and also protected the right to vote of black men. So another thing it did was create churches and communities and school systems. So the picture at the bottom is of a Freeman school. Schools like this became a big symbol of freedom because education gave people more opportunities and independence. So even with these changes, there was still a lot of resistance. So on the right hand side, black codes were laws that limited where black people could work, live, and travel. And there were white supremacist groups such as the KKK. They used violence to kind of intimidate black voters and make a lot of the rights difficult to be protected. So even while these changes were taking place, Birmingham itself was rapidly becoming an industrial city and soon got the name the Magic City because it grew just so quickly. So we had leaders like James Sloss. He is on the right hand side, the executive and founder of Sloss Furnaces. We have Henry D. Helped build mines, furnaces, and railroads that turned Birmingham into one of the largest industrial cities in the South. So at the bottom, we see that between 1880 and 1890, the population grew from about 3,000 to more than 38,000 by 1890. Yes. So that just shows how quickly the city expanded. Even with all of this happening and equal opportunity, it did not all grow at the same time. So there were still barriers to equality. Many black workers had some of the hardest, most dangerous jobs in Birmingham. The mines and the steel mills that we talked about previous slide, They worked super long hours in very unsafe conditions, with pretty much no protection. Um, Another major issue was convict leasing, which is where many black people were arrested for very minor or unfair offenses, and they were forced into hard labor or private companies. And these companies made money from their work, but the workers themselves received little to nothing in return. So it was a very unfair advantage. Um, and as Reconstruction came to an end, Jim Crow laws became legalized, and that was the legalized segregation. It limited opportunities in education, jobs, and public life in general. Together, these systems just made it very hard for black families to build wealth and create opportunities for future generations. So, learning about all these events really helped me to understand why this history is still meaningful and impactful today. So, it helps explain, like we said, why progress has been uneven for many communities. It explains the barriers that we have in generational wealth, the gap there. It gives a voice to people whose stories are often overlooked and shows how many communities still face these challenges today. For me personally, it changed the way I see Birmingham in my own community. So, like I said, my mom and I came here for a fresh start, and learning that so many formerly enslaved African Americans also came here looking for opportunity made this history feel a lot more personal. So yeah, looking back on the project, I realized I learned a lot more than I expected to. I mostly associated Birmingham with the civil rights movement during the 1950s and 1960s. I didn't realize that so much of the history started decades earlier during Reconstruction. Um, I learned that Reconstruction itself shaped a lot more than just the city, but people's lives and their opportunities, and even generations today, the generations that I'm in today. Frederick Douglass believed that true freedom meant more than just ending slavery. It also meant education, opportunity, dignity, and equal rights. So, after researching Birmingham's history, I have a much better understanding of why his message is still extremely relevant today. And overall, this project helped me to just understand my hometown and remind me why history is very important to remember. Um, that is it for my research project. Thank you guys so much. Here's my We're excited, and thank you so much for listening.